It's 5 a.m. and here in Mumbai most people are still asleep, but there are some who are toiling quietly, getting the city ready for the workday. This week on CNA Correspondent, we look at some groups who are out and about in Asia's most vibrant cities before dawn. While most of Mumbai's 20 million inhabitants are fast asleep, Danesh Meher begins his day in the middle of the night. He comes from a long line of traditional fishermen in the city, known as Kolis. Danesh typically goes out to sea to meet his boat before 4 a.m. He says it's easier to catch certain types of fish at night. Fishermen like Danesh have seen their catch plunge over the past decade. He blames pollution, new infrastructure development, and overfishing by trawlers in the Arabian Sea hugging Mumbai's coast.
आगे भविष्य में क्या होएगा वो कुछ मालूम नहीं सकता तो ऐसी कंडीशन में मच्छीमार जी रहा है डीजल का भी भाव हाई हो गया है और जो कामगार है जो काम कर रहे हैं उन लोग का वेजेस बढ़ रहा है महंगाई बढ़ रहा है इसकी वजह से जो पुअर फिशरमैन है जो गरीब मछुआर है जो ट्रेडिशनल फिशरमैन है
I meet Danesh when he comes back from his fishing trip. He normally returns before daybreak, but he stayed out longer today. Even after several hours out at sea, he managed to catch only a few dollars worth of fish. So you're not happy today?
No, not happy.
After deducting fuel costs and the workers' pay, there will be no profit today. With the poor takings, Danesh and his wife Manisha don't want their 3 children to follow them into fishing. They want them to get a good education, a better job and more money, an option that they themselves don't have.
मच्छी व्यक्ती तसं कामच नाही आहे म्हणजे मच्छी आम्ही मच्छीमार सोडू नाही शकत मच्छीचा धंदा त्या व्यक्तीत दुसरं काहीच काम नाही आहे म्हणून तेच काम करावं लागतं आणि मच्छी नाही भेटली तर आम्ही काय करणार
Manisha usually sells whatever they have at this fish market called Sassoon Dock. It's been here since the 19th century and is one of Mumbai's oldest and most famous markets. Every day, tons of fish and all kinds of seafood are brought into this wholesale market to be sold to traders, restaurants and households. It's about 5 a.m. here and things are in full swing, as this location plays a major role in feeding seafood lovers across the city and beyond. Danesh's cousin Ujwala comes to the market every day before dawn. Here she purchases the freshest fish at wholesale rates, which she resells. Ujwala bargains fiercely for her fish at these auctions. She eventually picks up some kingfish for about $20. But she's increasingly worried she may not be able to make ends meet.
पहला बहुत मच्छी था तो हम लोग ऐसा बहुत लेते थे मच्छी अभी बहुत कम हो गया है मच्छी को भाव भी बढ़ रहा है डीजल पेट्रोल को भाव बढ़ गया है तो मच्छी भी बहुत महंगा हो गया है
The days are long and hard for those who live off the sea. After a night out, Danesh makes repairs to his gear and boat to keep them shipshape. His community and their way of life are worlds apart from their neighbours. They're clustered in a prime area in southern Mumbai, surrounded by expensive homes and extensive development. But the community is worried that further development taking place in the city will affect fishers' breeding habitats. Major projects, including a new coastal road, are under construction, and there are plans to build a 200-metre-high statue of a 17th century warrior off the coast.
This used to be a fishing village, very old, from the time of the Portuguese. There were fisher communities here.
Academic Sanjay Renade has seen many of Mumbai's traditional fishing villages or Koliwadas make way for developments, including his university campus. And he says time and tide don't favour those still standing.
Since the 1960s or 70s, this deterioration in the quality of the sea or the marine ecosystem has started, because a lot of sewage, industrial waste, and then there are a lot of reclaiming of the land, and then there are deep sea trawlers which actually dig everything out. So there is a very serious threat to their livelihood.
For the fishermen, their hopes of going home with a good catch are slowly sinking. Danesh's friend Harshad is up early as he waits for his boat to return. He sent it out to sea 2 days ago.
गिराक आता है तो गिराक को अपना मच्छी को भी भाव लगता है, तो अपना इतना सुबह हम लोग मेहनत करके जाते हैं और फिश लेके आते हैं, थोड़ा भी मच्छी रहता है हम लोग को भाव लगता है, तो हम लोग को अच्छा लगता है कि हमारा मेहनत कुछ छूट गया है करके, तो दिन को सुकून मिलता है.
But this time, there's little to show for all their hard work and not much to sell. Still, for fishermen like Harshad and Danesh, the work isn't just about putting food on the table, but also feeding their soul.
हमारा बचपन से समुद्र के साथ रिलेशन है, जो बचपन से हम लोग को वो बोलता है ना, समुद्र हमारा माँ है, समुद्र हमारा बाप है, समुद्र जो भी है हमारा वो समुद्र के ऊपर है, वो उसी से हम लोग छोटे से बड़े हो गए, वही हम लोग को खाना पीना सब देता है.
And while dark days are on the horizon, Danesh, like thousands of other Koli fishermen in Mumbai, intends to toil for his catch for as long as he can.
It's 2 hours before dawn, and a familiar sound is again echoing through the streets of Kathmandu. The city is an early riser, but most of its residents are still sound asleep when 57-year-old Rita Deola starts her day. At 4:30 a.m., she's already working with a long wooden broom in her hand.
माई पाव जया चाहिने अनि मानथन जागृतै बेला अले जिउ जया माई पाव न मान नापान्दु माई न गबले नापा माई नापा त जया का मान पहिल पहिल जाम सबले चाहिँ मान जासन ल थेथे या रे हैन.
Rita comes from the Pode community, which was considered untouchable in the Hindu caste system. As each caste was assigned a job, the Podes were designated with cleaning the city. For many like Rita, this job is all they had access to. They were denied the right to an education and were expected to follow in the footsteps of the generations before them by cleaning the city.
नेपालको नेवार समाजमा विभिन्न पेशागत व्यावसायिक चाहिँ मतलब समुदायहरू जात भन्नुहोस् ती चाहिँ छन्. पोडे भनेको खोला छेउमा बस्ने नगर क्षेत्रभित्र उनीहरूले चाहिँ सरसफाइको काम गर्छन्. त्यो हिन्दू कास्ट सिस्टमको प्रभावले पोडेलाई चाहिँ सोसियल ग्रुपमा सबभन्दा तल्लो तहको भनेर बुझ्ने चाहिँ गरिन्छ है.
However, things are slowly changing. After Nepal passed a law against caste-based discrimination and untouchability more than a decade ago. The younger generation of the Pode community now have the opportunity to go to school, something that was denied to their parents, and compete on a fair footing with the rest of society.
हाम्रो त अब आमा बाउ गरिब भएर अब यस्तो काम हामीले गर्नु पर्यो पढ्न पनि पाएन हैन अब पर्यो भने त खान पाएन काम नगरिकन पहिलाको जमानामा अब हामीले त यस्तो भोग्यो यस्तो गर्यो यस्तो दुःख गर्यो अब आफ्नो छोराछोरीलाई त्यस्तो नहोस् भनेर चाहन्छु हैन
Vijay Lakshmi is the last cleaner who was hired by the city. That was in 2007. Today, the Kathmandu metropolitan city is no longer hiring cleaners and waste management is slowly being privatized.
काठमाडौँ महानगरपालिका वातावरण विभाग अन्तर्गत जुन यो फोहोर मैला कर्मचारीको अवकाश भएर गइरहेछन् नयाँ राखेको पनि छैन महानगरपालिकाले निजी क्षेत्रलाई पनि प्रमोसन गर्नको लागि निजी क्षेत्रलाई पनि अब फोहोर मैलामा चाहिँ प्रवेश गराउन खोजिरहेछन् विगत 10 वर्ष जति भयो
Currently, there are 640 cleaners who work for the city. That's less than a third of what it was just a decade ago. With the changes in society, street cleaning can surely be turned into a stable job and be viewed as dignified work.
अलिकति कुचिकार भन्ने साथ मान्छेहरुलाई लाग्छ कि तल्लो काम यताउति सोच्छ हैन अब सबैजना डाक्टर इन्जिनियर भयो कि कोले सफा गर्ने र त्यसको लागि सबैजना आफ्नो आफ्नो ठाउँमा सबैको आफ्नो आफ्नो के भन्छ यो महत्त्व हुन्छ
हामी समाजमा बसिसकेपछि स्वस्थ हुनुपर्छ स्वस्थको लागि नै सरसफाइ चाहिन्छ फर्स्ट बिहान उहाँ कुचिकारले नै सफा गरेपछि मात्र हाम्रो घरहरु वरिपरि सफा हुन्छ 2 दिन उनीहरुले काम बन्द गरोस् हामीले काम बन्द गरौँ त आफ्नो घर आफै फोहोर हुन्छ हैन त
Vijay Lakshmi is glad that the younger generation will no longer be restricted to working as cleaners. But she also fears that this avenue of work will not be viable for them if they choose to do so.
अब पहिला जस्तै होइन पहिला त घरमै लिन आउँथ्यो काम गर्ने नभएर अहिले त अब राख्दिनु भनेर हजुर भने पनि छैन अब यस्तो पनि भयो नि त अब हाम्रो सानो जात हैन सानो जात हेल्ला गर्ने हामीलाई नि हो अब हाम्रो सत्ता पनि अरु ठुलो जातले पनि खाइरहेछ स्विफर काममा हैन अब त्यही भएर पनि हामीलाई काम नभएको हो के
And on the flip side, garbage collection and street cleaning is not confined to a caste. But with market forces at work, these workers might not be better off. With Kathmandu turning over waste management to private companies, there is a fear it will turn it into an informal job, making sanitation workers more vulnerable to exploitation. Ratnakaji tells me that the cleaners who are employed by the metropolitan city are considered government employees. This means they have stable jobs. Not so much for those working for the private sector.
अब निजी क्षेत्रको सवालमा चाहिँ उनीहरुको सायद मेरो विचारमा महानगरपालिकाको कर्मचारीको भन्दा पनि उनीहरुको प्राइभेटको कर्मचारीको तलब चाहिँ कमै छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई चाहिँ यता म्युनिसिपालिटीको कर्मचारीको चाहिँ उनीहरु पर्मानेन्टली स्टाफ भइरा हुन्छ हैन तर कम्पनीको प्राइभेट कम्पनीको स्टाफहरु चाहिँ उनीहरुलाई अब कम्पनीले चाहे भने राख्ने नचाहे भने तुरुन्त एक्सपायर गर्ने नगरपालिकाको कर्मचारीको जस्तो उनीहरुको चाहिँ मतलब चाहिँ स्थायित्व हुँदैन
A stability that Rita knows well, having worked for 41 years and becoming Kathmandu's longest-serving cleaner in the process. Next year, she will formally retire, hanging up her brooms for good. Her only hope is that the city continues to stay clean, even if the Podes are no longer cleaning it.
It's about an hour to dawn. 71-year-old Fong Yuk Hoi is already on the water. He's one of the lucky ones still able to sail.
睇油睇水啦，check下部機啦，咁check好晒，咪做下清潔咯。所有啲凳椅啊，抹下佢啊，咁做下抹下嘢，做下清潔咁樣，就差唔多夠鐘㗎啦。
He's a captain with Eastern Ferry Company, a long-running Gaito service, otherwise known as a small motorized ferry. Just a few steps away, a fish market is stirring, with fishermen hauling in the first catch of the day. It's the heart of the district, where most in Hong Kong go for fresh seafood. The stalls line the promenade at Aberdeen Harbour. Many fishmongers are residents who've lived and worked there for years, and it's Mr. Fong's job to ferry them. Back on land, the streets are also coming alive.
That's a saying among Hong Kong residents living on the island. If you're bored and have time on your hands, take the tram. It starts from Kennedy Town at the western side, through the historical estate of Sheung Wan, and past the luxury shopping belt of Causeway Bay. Now that's about 30 kilometers of trek. And at 260 Hong Kong dollars, you don't just get a ride, you sort of get a front row seat through time. But with faster modes of public transport now, like buses and trains, the question is, how much more runway does the tram have?
From a British colony to a bustling metropolis, Hong Kong Tramways has lived through it all, growing its fleet more than 6 times over 118 years. Its trams are more endearingly known as Ding Dings. Lok Wai Man is among 300 motormen at the helm.
我諗可能去到好後都可以見到嘅。我諗未來可能100年或者再耐啲，可能都仲見到，因為始終係香港一個特色，即係我諗應該都唔會俾人淘汰嘅，即係可能營運上會有啲改變，但係我覺得都仲會喺度。
Most days, he starts his shift as early as 4 a.m.
17年啦已經，係啊。其實每一朝都係做翻差唔多嘅嘢嘅，即係譬如朝頭早嚟翻工啊，咁你會係 check 架車啦，好似今朝咁啦，咁之後就會行一次架車啦，咁就入好晒所有路線啊，咁就原則上都出得㗎啦架車。
It's not long before a line forms.
因為我翻得早，佢亦都係最早嘅交通工具咯。翻工嘛，好多車搭喎，就係搭電車。我碼頭嗰度嗰個站接近嗰個 Macau Ferry Terminus 嘛。我落翻個頭過嚟，我落翻個頭過嚟咯。
Back at Aberdeen Harbour, Mr. Fong is preparing for the first service of the day as dawn breaks over the horizon. Eastern Ferry Company is the only operator that plies the Aberdeen Harbour, connecting the southern district of Hong Kong Island to the small island of Ap Lei Chau.
Over 50,000 people live on Ap Lei Chau. Now this is one of the most densely populated islands in the world, as you can see from the rows of residential buildings there. Now the island used to have a larger industrial zone, but since that the bulk of activity has moved to Hong Kong Island as well as to Kowloon, thousands of people need to commute across this harbour daily.
The journey takes less than 5 minutes. So before the pandemic, the seats fill up fast, even if residents had the option to travel by land across a bridge.
繁忙有時一埋頭咧，即刻又開頭啦！呢個疫情真係好犀利，少好多㗎。朝頭我哋好多時伊朗班咧，呢度咧急時過去咯。啲茶餐廳冇得開啊嘛，咁洗嘢啊、清潔啊、借嗰啲咁樣咧，變咗又冇工返咯，咁變咗少咗。
Over the last 2 years, ridership on ferries across Hong Kong dwindled without a steady flow of tourists, while many residents started working from home. Bigger players like Star Ferry, which has shuttled between Hong Kong Island and Kowloon since the late 1800s, sailed into troubled waters, with losses of almost $9 million. But Eastern Ferry Company is a smaller outfit, a saving grace during these tough times.
咁咧，而家我哋即係話疫情一平穩咧，我哋都做到以前90成咁上下嘅。咁當然就翻唔到10足啦。咁就其實都叫做不幸中大幸啦。我都知道比起其他行家咧，其他交通工具咧，我哋都算好噶啦。
It's easy to see why.
嗰啲巴士班次又疏咗啊，所以咪變咗要搭船好啲咯。
因為開工早啊嘛，佢呢班船日就開工時間啊嘛，咁啊所以方便好多。係啊，方便好多。佢又唔係貴咧，而家尤其是我哋而家2蚊啊嘛。
But while the Eastern Ferry Company has managed to stay afloat, Hong Kong Tramways hasn't been so lucky.
Of course, the ridership in the past 2 years has been, dropping from 25 to 50% in the peak times.
So for the first time in 4 years, the company applied for a fare hike of about 4 cents in 2021. Since it hasn't been approved, it's relying on government subsidies. But with ridership still a big source of revenue,
Readjust cleaning strategy. We basically double hours used in cleaning. We clean the tram at each terminal station. The handrails, the handles, everything. We made the decision to maintain the full frequency, meaning that with a lower ridership, spread in with the same frequency means less density on board. So we strive to maintain the same service in order to allow our passengers to be, distanced from each other.
the service has also tapped into new markets, like education and entertainment, to keep the wheels turning and the money flowing, ensuring that even as the world spins on, the tram remains an iconic part of Hong Kong culture.